Now you might think the biggest challenges to this project will be the mechanical ones, like fitting the motor, the drive shafts, or repackaging the batteries to fit in the Porsche. Those jobs don't really concern me. I think Matt has got the ability and the confidence to take all that on. Even finding a way to fit the interior controls, the screens, the air conditioning, will take quite some time, I think. But again, mechanical and packaging jobs don't really scare me. But as I've said right from the beginning, the thing that's losing me sleep is the electrics. The massive wiring loom, how much of it we need and how to make it fit in the Porsche. There are so many modules that all need to talk to one another before the car will actually let you drive. Even if I spoke Chinese, understanding the whole electrical system would take years. So I'm taking virtually all of it, unless I'm certain that something's not actually essential for the car to move. Now you can imagine how disappointing it would be if I spent months relooming and reconnecting it all, then you push the start button, there's a bright flash of light and nothing happens. Where do you start? That's what scares me. So I'm back to continuing the job of removing the whole wiring loom without damaging anything. And if you've ever seen the way they fit a wiring loom to a new car, it looks like this. One huge octopus that starts in the middle and reaches its tentacles to every corner of the car. It's one of the first things to go in, so it's the last thing to come out. Funnily enough, the one module we know we don't need is this crash module we discovered early on is redundant and serves no purpose, but a lot of this I'll have to reassemble. We obviously can't move the car unless I put the steering wheel back on. We need all of this. That's security in our passive entry and security system stuff. We obviously need the brake pedal switch there and the throttle as well. That'll be our electronic throttle. It goes into the Porsche. 2 connectors on it. Its looms indicated there. And then of course, well, next thing, the whole heating ventilation system's got to come out. And then last of all, body control computer. Stuart, less talking, more working. Sometimes these little connectors can be really, really tricky to figure out how they work. The slider here, you have to push down here to get that to snap out, and that releases the second catch, which is, that enables you to then push down here, which would then free it up. Yeah. That whole process took about 10 minutes to figure out. Ta-da! It's done! Body control module out. Very important part of the car. Now the only question is, does all this stuff, including this fuse box, does everything go through that hole to the front, or does all the stuff in the front come through the hole back this way? Yet to be answered, but it's got to be one or the other. This looks a bit of a tight squeeze. Yeah, it might go. Let's get this bracket off. I do not want to disassemble that. Alright, now here's a really interesting one. This is the steering wheel assembly out of the MG. Now, we are using the Porsche steering column, the Porsche steering wheel, the Porsche lights and wipers indicators. So that's all kind of redundant, except for these buttons here are really useful. We need these so that we can reset things on the display, you know, tire pressure monitoring to energy conservation, to all that stuff. So we need this little module here. We don't really need the entertainment stuff because that can all be done on the screen in the center, but this is quite useful. So maybe we can actually get rid of the horn, and maybe we can just take these out, and we won't mount them on the Porsche steering wheel because that'd look really messy, but maybe they can go over on the dash panel somewhere to the right hand side. How would it connect? Well, that connector went into here, so we need a bit of this, and that connector goes through this ribbon cable underneath to here. So we need part of this, but we don't need these things. So it'll be an interesting challenge, blending the two together. Into the box you go with all the other useful bits. And because we're going to still need to maneuver the car around a bit, make sure the hydraulic brakes still work, and we're going to need to steer Meg a bit, so yeah, there we go. So we've now got brakes and steering. Okay, time to have a look inside this gearbox. Why? Well, I'm just a sticky beak, but we need to check what gear ratios it has. Matt wants to check out the overall condition, and because we're running it flipped over about 135 degrees, We want to see if there are any issues with the splash lubrication. And lastly, we'll probably need to relocate the drain plug and the breather. There it is, the last of the oil. Dip might fall out. There we go. Okay, so how simple is that? Look at that. Drive gear out of the motor, and from there, straight to the differential. Just there. And that's it. How simple is that? Open differential.
It's nice to actually pull something apart, and look at it, it's all
beautiful.
It's clean as
30,000 Ks. You can see the lubrication's just all splash, isn't it?
Yeah. No. Yeah. So there's our drain plug with the magnet. So that's up.
Yeah.
So yeah, I'd say the splash is designed to catch on this shot, like this little ledge, and try and run into the bearing, and so splash a little. But at the end of the day, we'll probably put some more oil in it anyway.
It's got 1.5 litres of oil in there. It's going to find its way around everything. A little bit of play.
Oh, just a bit of backlash there, which is for the oil to go between the gears. That's good though, isn't it? It's mint in there, just the tiniest bit of that typical, you know, Korea.
Korea, really?
Yeah, yep, KBC Korea.
Wow, Korean bearing.
Yeah.
SAIC, Shanghai Automotive Industrial Corporation.
Oh yeah.
Chinese, Korean.
Yeah, Korean bearings.
Collaborative project.
Yeah.
Between Korea, China and Germany. We're making a whole new car. And Australia.
And Australia.
Because those poly bushes you got there, they're white line, they're Australian.
They're Australian, so there's everything coming from...
Mate, multinational car.
Yeah.
And the next question, what happens? How do you get reverse gear? Reverse is simply running the engine, the motor, in the reverse direction. There's no change to the gearing at all. So if the motor's turning, the car's moving, either forwards or backwards.
1, 2... There's 3 sort of main components, that's it.
Yeah.
And some bearings.
Yeah. Three gears, 6 bearings.
Yeah, that's it. It's pretty...
Simple.
Very simple.
It's funny, isn't it, Matt? I can't remember people's faces and names, but I remember numbers. How do you remember people?
Oh, probably by the cars they drive.
Oh, yeah. I just remember people by the cars they drive. Today's challenge, I want to figure out how fast this car will go. We often get asked. And knowing that this engine does 10,000 RPM, according to the plate on top, I reckon we can figure out, using the gear ratios, how fast the axle's going to turn, and then knowing the circumference of the tyre, how fast it's going to go at 10,000 RPM. Now, we've got one gear. They call it first gear, but you wouldn't call it first gear, would you? You'd just call it the gear. Now, there's no clutch and no torque converter, so there's no slip. Okay, so let's figure out the ratios. If this is doing 10,000 RPM, there's 23 teeth there and 51 teeth there.
Yep.
So if you're using division, now I'll spare you all the mental gymnastics, but yes, I really did do all the maths in my head. The important thing to note is that the gear ratios multiply the torque to the rear wheels. So even though it's a small motor, it's got really good torque. Look, unlike a petrol 928, I'm expecting the top end performance to be a bit soft, really. But I don't care. Nonetheless, it will be fun to find out exactly how fast it can go. That 44 times 3 is 132, and 44 times 0.6 is 26.4. 132 plus 26.4 is 158.4. That's our speed.
Pass. Sure.
Now 158 k's an hour, just short of the tonne, because everybody knows that 160 k's an hour is 100 miles an hour, except that it isn't. So it's actually about 99 miles an hour.
Sure. There we go.
Now, in Germany, that'd be a pain in the arse. We couldn't drive it on the Autobahn because we'd be sitting there at 100 miles an hour. Everyone's flashing by, going much, much quicker. But in Australia, on the road, we have a national speed limit of 110. So I think 160 is plenty, as long as we've got the acceleration. But I think we'll have the acceleration as well because it's got the torque down low, which the Porsche motor doesn't really have. All right, we've got to put it back together. I've got to do a better job.
A bit of carby cleaner, firm rub with the rag. So we'll drill this and we'll thread it with an M8 thread, and then I'll put a countersink on it, and we'll put an M8 bolt with a little O-ring. Okay. And the O-ring will sit in the countersink. We could put copper washers and machine it flat, but it just needs to hold oil and not leak. Yeah. And it will get used maybe, once in its life. It's like a good chart on the internet, like in the black book saying, you know, what's this?
Our asymmetric engine mount.
That's it. So we've got a cotton reel which will weld off the center. Got this guy here, and this guy will pick up these 2 points, and it will sit sort of like this.
Beautiful.
Then we'll just follow that.
And this is 5 mil thick steel.
Yeah.
It's not going anywhere.
No.
All right, new brakes are looking good. Now, something really fun. Do you remember back in about episode 5, we saw how somebody in their wisdom had done this incredibly tacky job on the harness to the electric seat. Wire wrapped and half soldered and a bit of tape, and it's just really tacky. I found, now you probably know this already, but a brilliant solution, and it's these Deutsch fasteners. Man, if you haven't seen these, you've got to get into them. So, for example, if you're doing speakers, you'd want 4 pairs of wires for your 4 speakers, and the perfect connector might be this one here, for example. There's a male connector and a female there, and I'm going to show you how it works. Okay, so let's take the male connector. We'll take a lead here. I've already crimped it, but just to show you how it works, special tool, in she goes, crush, brilliant, and that's tight as a drum. So we'll choose a slot. We'll choose this one, for example, just randomly. Go through this little rubber thing. Let's go into number 7, just for argument's sake. We push that through, and it just pops through nicely. And see how it sits so beautifully flush there? And then it's locked in. It's not going anywhere, unless you get a little screwdriver and go like that to release it again, in which case it can come out. But we don't need to do that, so it just sits there beautifully. All right. Well, just for argument's sake, just do 1 connector. We won't do all 8. Now, to make sure that stays exactly where it is, put this little, that snaps on, and then you've got a waterproof seal, because you can use these things inside or outside, so they're good for like trailer fittings or something like that. That's the male side done. Female side. Okay, female side gets the male pin. See, that's the little male pin. 5, 6, 7's there, so we'll push that through. Just slide it back. I've already crimped this one. Just slot it in through number 7, and it just sits in there, and it's locked. And once again, this time you put a little green spade thing in there, push it in, snaps in beautifully, and that is not going anywhere. Okay, put our little waterproof seal on. Presto, 2 connectors made, male and female. And if you line them up right, they won't go that way, they'll only go the one way. Snap them together, solid as a rock, and let's just check for continuity. Continuity achieved. So I'll do the electric seat in the Porsche now, and then fix that horrible daggy old connection. How good is that? Now the best thing about that, no soldering, and you can undo it. If you needed to get through a narrow firewall or something, you can actually take the whole thing completely apart again, just by snapping them apart and releasing the pins, so you can feed in small wire through a firewall and then connect them. Absolutely love it. And there it is. Still got to heat shrink these things and get them out of the way. They're dead leads, but how good is that? Doesn't this appeal to the inner 6-year-old in your first ever Meccano set? It's fantastic. I don't know why it feels so good to do this. Now I know you're fascinated in this, so we're going to have a brief talk about batteries. I've done some basic CAD drawings for your amusement. Now the standard MG has 18 bread loaf sized batteries laid out like this. Each one's only about 24 volts, but when connected in series, they add up to a life-threatening 425 volts. So watch out, Matt. They're under the floor in a large aluminium frame that has built-in liquid cooling for when they're working hard, and heating for those freezing morning starts, which we don't actually get where I live, but anyway. Now that design obviously won't fit in the Porsche, so I've had to do some repackaging. Not as easy as you might think, as the wiring for the BMS, the battery management system, which is not shown here, is complicated and has to connect them all in the right order. Initially I wanted to have 2 battery boxes, one front and a smaller one in the rear, but I think we can keep it simple and achieve good weight distribution with just one pack, located where the V8 used to be, in the front but as close to the middle of the car as possible. So this is what I've come up with. 3 layers of 6 batteries, here shown with the top layer raised a bit, and double-sided cooling plates. It's a relatively compact design, weighing about 240 kilos all up, which is still considerably less than the V8 with all its accessories. It's a modest 44.5 kilowatt hour capacity, and that should give the car a range of around 260 kilometres. Not huge, but more than enough for around town, and I do have fast charging capacity, so I actually see no problem with interstate trips either. The range might actually be better than that, as the Porsche will be lighter and more slippery than the original SUV from which it came. The cabinet will have this solid steel frame mounted very securely, and the whole enclosure will be sealed off with a blow-off vent. So there you are, that's a snapshot of the battery. Fascinating, wasn't it? Yeah, that's beautiful work.
There it is.
We don't need to send it off to Send Cut Send. Do you know them?
Yeah.
Yeah,
I don't know if they're in Australia, are they?
No. It takes too long to get to the States and back, and then customs would charge some hideous duty on it, like they did before.
It's no CNC bender, but
Mate, that is just...
not too bad.
That is... Oh, it's still hot.
Yeah.
That is beautiful.
So this will go... We'll work out position back and forward, and then we'll trim it and we'll box it in. Put a strap between the rails, and we'll just work out our height, and we can put two, and we'll get a dead level. Mm-hmm. Then we'll work out our next two mounts. Mm. The motor, we can work the electrics, then we just got to do shafts. And,
yeah.
But that's a pretty big jump forward to then unlock a lot of other work to be done.
Absolutely.
So that'd be great.
Me, I'm the electrical guy.
That's it.
Now I've discovered my new Deutsch fasteners. Things are just not going to be in the right position, so the loom's going to need to be extended in a dozen places.
Yeah.
So I can see myself getting like 30-pin connectors.
Yeah, for sure.
2 metres long,
Yeah, the Deutsch plugs are great.
Yeah, and probably as close as it can be this way. You'll see when you come in. Yeah. That's it. Just an inch at the top. That's it. And if it was square, which it will be soon.
Yeah, that's good. Get a bit of plate and plate it straight over. It'll be really good.
Is that squarer?
It's getting squarer, yeah. That's better there, yeah.
But these are slotted, so you've got some movement there.
Yeah, it's nice to try and get it in the right position to start with. It's about 40 mil. So what I'm going to do is, instead of making a tube and notching it, I'll actually use a bit of that 100 mil flat bar. Mm-hmm. CO 8%, so cobalt 8%.
Cobalt drill.
Cobalt, yeah. It's not as good as carbide, but carbide's very expensive.
Everything in here is a death trap, Something gets caught in a tool and you fling around, you can just rip your guts out in a second.
When you have a mill, that doesn't stop for anything.
But I notice you operate within your limits. Like I've commented on a video before, why don't you wear gloves? And you said, well, that's because gloves, if they get snagged on this, it draws your hand into the device. So
it'd probably, if this slipped and just like grazed your skin, a glove would save you, where it would just rip your skin. But I always stay on one side of the blade, and
I notice how cautious you are.
Yeah,
even it looks like you're cavalier to people that don't know, but you're not.
No, you're your own safety boss, and go, this is unsafe. Don't do that, You need to hurt yourself slightly to go, it's important not to.
There's a whole lot of things in here that can hurt you.
Everything. That'll crush you. That mill will just pull your arm in and it will not stop. Mm. And this will cut you. That press, the welder will electrocute you. Mm. The car will gas you silently and go, I'm tired. Everything's going to try and
I didn't show people that enormous gash on my head in episode 4 as well.
You hurt yourself. Let there be blood.
Yeah.
Blood in, blood out.
Yeah,
Everything in this, nothing here has a brain except us. Mm. We're the one controlling it, so anyway. Mm.
Okay.
Saying that, let's grind some more stuff. So as long as they're the same height.
Considering you did that just by eye.
Yeah. This main piece, it's strong if we like go that way, but that way is very weak. It's like a spoon.
Yep.
You can bend a knife one way, but you can't bend it the other.
Yeah, yeah.
And this is the wrong way for bending.
Yep.
So we need to box that in.
Okay. That's got heaps of coverage on those engine mounts. This is not going anywhere. That's really solid. We can relieve a little bit more at the top there. And we've got clearance around here. And the drive shafts are fine. There's plenty of play there on both sides. So where's our drain plug that we did this morning? Oh look, it's right there.
Right
It's absolutely perfect location.
And the filler is dead above the drive shaft.
The engine's supported very much in the middle. The weight of the motor's this side mainly. So yes, here's our engine mounts there. So you're thinking from there to the rail above. What are you thinking?
Yeah, I think we probably lose this and just put a flat plate there.
Okay.
And we'll build up and just put some crush tubes in the rail. So that will take all that weight.
It's not exactly heavy. You know, the whole motor's 100 kilograms, you know.
Yeah.
The charger was this side of the motor. So that's perfect because look what we've got here. Charge flap. Petrol filler.
Looks like it sort of should be there. Don't hate me for that, internet.
Hate all you like, internet. We can take it. Hey, thanks for watching the video. And you made it all the way to the end. You rock. Now, whether it's petrol or electric, there's a lot of Porsche content on the channel, and there's going to be a lot more. So maybe you'd like to subscribe. You might also enjoy all the other non-Porsche content we've already got. Heaps of car reviews. Electric, classic, sports, exotic. There's a bucket load there. See you next time.